Phreology Friday. I'm Derrick Day, and he is.
I am Aaron Tomlinson, as always. Good to see you
Yes,
there.
good to see you, Aaron. It's been a week, but it's like I said, it's always good to see you, man. And before we get started, what is in your glass,
Well,
sir?
I'm going hard or going home tonight. So this is an old fashioned that's made of chocolate whiskey, a scotch, a smoky scotch with some aromatic bitters, chocolate bitters, and garnishes with orange peel and maraschino cherry.
Nice. Well, I'm on a similar vibe. I took an old fashioned. I added a little bit of orange juice to it, so it's basically simple syrup, orange bitters, Uncle Nearest whiskey. Now, let me just say this because last week Maya and I went to the Uncle Nearest distillery. Since we were in Nashville, we had to make this pilgrimage, right? And so I learned the difference between Tennessee whiskey and bourbon. And the difference is that Tennessee whiskey goes through this charcoal filtration. Because the recipe for the mash is basically the same as bourbon, but it's different because it goes through this charcoal filtration. So they cut down maple trees, char them, and this char is used as the filtration agent,
Wow.
and so there you go, right? So I can't call Uncle Nearest bourbon anymore because it's not bourbon, but it still makes a good fucking old fashioned.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, this is awesome.
And this is pretty good too. So like I said, it's Uncle Nearest whiskey, orange bitters, simple syrup, and a little bit of OJ and a lot of Uncle Nearest. So being that you've been at it for a minute, this should be an interesting show.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of that chocolate whiskey is really sweet, right?
Yeah.
So instead of adding simple syrup, I just put some chocolate whiskey, and then I like the peaty. Like I thought I'd try the smoky flavor, the peaty,
Oh, but don't forget to tell everybody that you smoke the glass
and I
first.
smoked the glass. So
Yes.
it's pretty awesome. The only thing I didn't add that I was thinking about adding, and I didn't add it because we didn't have it, was some melted marshmallow.
Oh, God, that would have been that would have been over the top, man. It would
Yeah.
have been a s'mores in a
Yep.
glass.
Campfire in a glass. Yeah, absolutely. So that's the mood I'm in tonight.
All right, so I guess the subject is on me to introduce because this is my subject because as you know, me and Aaron we talk about what we're going to talk about before we talk about it, and try to get a little head start on what we're going to talk about so that we don't sound like complete morons. No, we're not going to sound like complete morons no matter what because I know, like, I'll tell anybody that I know I'm a smart guy and I know Aaron's a smart guy, so we're not going to sound stupid no matter what. But
Right.
that being
Unless
said,
we get too lit.
what's that?
Unless we get too lit on our
Yeah,
drinks.
and we still need to do that the Tequila Tuesdays
Yes,
thing.
we
You
do.
know,
Maybe we should save that for the election this year.
oh, that'd be great, man.
Follow the election results live with Derrick and Aaron.
Yeah, and then and whenever the election results come in, we take a shot.
We either be celebrating or weeping. I don't know.
Yeah, but we'll be drunk either way. So.
Yeah.
So anyway, the subject tonight, excuse me, nursing a cold, is I wanted to talk about the difference between ists and isms, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this because a lot of times we get caught up with or we conflate ists with isms. In other words, we associate people with the ideology. And let me say this and I've said this to Maya. This is directed to you, hon. Is that I said that this year I'm going to be 40% less atheist, right? so so with my goal being 40% less atheist, um,
I love it. Anyway,
it makes me better. Anyway, uh, basically, like I would conflate Christians with Christianity. right? Because Christianity is an ism. It doesn't end in an ism, but it's an ism, right? And so one of the downfalls of that is that not all Christians are bad.
Mm-hmm.
But me personally, I think that Christianity as a religion, as a system of faith, as a system of belief, or whatever you want to call it, as an institution, I think it's awful. I think it's shitty. But so you have to be careful of conflating one with the other. And and I say this like communists may not be conflated with communism, right? Or and then there's another nuance to that we say things that are communist, but they're not really communist. They're communistic. So it's the ick, right? That actually further nuances it, and and that's what I wanted to talk about. And this is sort of a hot take on the whole love the sinner, hate the sin debate, right? Because again, what happens is that we make the mistake of saying just because a person believes this way that they are this, right? And so I wanted to kind of split that up a little bit, divide that up a little bit, that nuance it a little bit, and say, okay, what is, how do we, first of all, how do we distinguish between ists and isms, right? And then how do we get away from conflating the ist with the ism, right? So that's basically, my opening salvo. So I'll kick it over to you at that with
Yeah.
that.
So it's interesting. I mean, this opens up a whole new world for me, really, because I mean, I know what, like you sent me the text. I knew what you were talking about, right? Like, fascism, narcissism, fundamentalism. What are some others? Nationalism,
Yep.
socialism, communism, capitalism.
Capitalism.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, and so these are all belief systems. These are all, I guess I would say, external to the person, right? These are all programmings.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about an ism is that it is a compilation of beliefs. And this is where, again, language becomes so slippery for us, right? Because they're like, what really is fundamentalism, or what really is, how many people have you engaged with, let's say just in the last year, that really know what socialism is, or really know the difference between, say, socialism and communism, or really know what capitalism is? I mean, these are very complex systems of belief that we collapse into one word that becomes a label then that we use for a certain ideology that we either agree with or disagree with. And then if someone says something that we conflate with an ism, it may or may not be accurate, whether that's even part of it, right? Like, let's say fascism. What are the various different beliefs and components of fascism, right? And how many go into that? Or, like I said, socialism. How many people really understand what that is? And somebody says something that we think fits into that label, and then we label them an ist,
Yeah.
a capitalist, a fascist, a fundamentalist, a narcissist. And that's how we relate to that person. See, that's the problem that I see, Derrick. Then we relate to the person. We're relating to an ideal. It's 100% with my psychological background, right? Like, it's 100% a projection, because I have labeled you a atheist.
Yep.
Right? And I know what atheism is, or at least I think I do. And so now I relate to you as an atheist. And there's no room for nuance.
Right.
Because there should be nuance in these things. And the other thing we do, and then I'll throw it back to you. The other thing we do when we make ists out of isms is that we identify ourselves or the other person completely and totally with this non-nuanced philosophy or ideology,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can't have discussion. So in other words, if I say, and I know you say you're an atheist, I'm just throwing out thoughts, but if I say I am
40% less
a,
atheist, by the
yeah,
way.
if I say I am a communist, or I am a, somebody's going to clip that, and then you're going to be naughty with me, but or I am a capitalist, or I'm whatever kind of ist, right? If I make that my identity, now how do I engage in conversation with someone without my sense of self feeling threatened? And I think that's the problem. So if I were to say, let's just use atheist because it's been brought up. If I were to say I am an atheist and I hold to atheistic tenets, I may not embrace the full measure of what you perceive, not you, but someone else
Yeah.
perceives to be atheism, right? But and you come at me with an argument, you come at me with challenging information, a formidable argument. Because I've so identified with the philosophy, I can't engage around the ideas anymore. And I'm certainly not free to change my mind because I already identified myself and put myself out there personifying
Mm-hmm.
this ideology. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes
And so I
perfect
think
sense.
that's one of the biggest reasons that we can't like just learn and grow. That's one of the things we do in this show all the time. Like we grow
Growing
and
in real time.
because I think we do a really, really good job in our friendship and relationship of separating ideas and processes from personality and identity. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I think it was you put up, I haven't been on social media much at all this month, but I was scrolling for like 10 seconds today. And I think I saw something that you posted about to be in a long-term relationship with someone is to experience 1,000 funerals
Yeah.
of the person that they used to be.
Yep.
But see, that's healthy because that allows for growth and exchange, and that's a relationship that's founded on something bigger than an idea. And that was the biggest problem I had. If I were to say, if someone were to ask me as it stands today, Aaron, what is your biggest problem with
So here.
Christianity? I would say my biggest problem with Christianity is that it presents itself as a religion and a community
Booze.
that is based on love. But at the end of the day, it's based on sharing an ideology. And people cannot separate loving you while holding a different opinion. It makes relationships really hard
Yeah.
because if I hold my opinion too strongly, this person is going to ghost me. This person is going to come at me, or vice versa, right? And so we can't have discussion, and I can't really sit there and think because in this culture that we live in, like you're not even sometimes allowed to grow because you're still held captive to the person that you were instead of having the funeral.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yep.
You're
Yep.
carrying around a corpse in everybody's mind, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And like this was something that I was reading in prep for this show, is that we like labels.
Yeah.
It's like one of the things that makes the supermarket such a grand concept is that everything is labeled. You have an idea of what this is. So like if you go into the condiments aisle, you know what ketchup is, you know what mustard is, you know what mayonnaise is, right? And there may be excuse me, different varieties of that, but you know what each one of these things are. And we like labels because labels allow us to put things in boxes, allows us to compartmentalize, right? The problem is that when we either assign labels to people, right, then we begin to categorize, or when we put labels on ourselves, then we begin to identify with something. And I think that when you label something, you eliminate the opportunity for nuance.
Mm-hmm.
You eliminate the opportunity to to make this more like a rheostat rather than a switch, right? A rheostat is like a dimmer,
Right.
and so you have an infinite number of positions on this sliding scale.
Hmm.
But we look at it as a switch. We try to make it binary, or we try to bifurcate it with détentes that we can easily identify. And I think that's the problem with a lot of ists. Now, granted, there are cases where the ist and the labeling makes sense,
Right.
right? And because I don't want to give the same freedom and the same nuance to everything, right? Because some things do deserve more nuance, more contemplation, more positions on the scale. But there are some things that, like for example, narcissism. You know, narcissism. Okay, so when someone is a narcissist, I identify with them with narcissism, and I'm okay with that identification.
Hmm.
Now, let me say this about narcissists, because I do I believe that narcissists can be loved through their narcissism. And I do believe that they can be uh, redeemed from their narcissism. But I said this earlier in our text. I said the one exception to that is fascism. I don't see any redeeming qualities in a fascist or fascism. And so once I assign that label to someone, I'm pretty much checked out on
Yeah.
them. That's just me. Now, that might be a little harsh, and I understand that, maybe everything deserves a little bit more nuance than I give it, but that's me. That's my value assignment.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, you can't survive in this world. I mean, if we gave nuance to everything that could be nuanced, we would just sit around navel gazing all day long. I mean, you wouldn't get anything done.
Right.
So you have to set boundaries. I don't think, like nobody's saying on here you can't have strong opinions and set boundaries with people that disagree with your values. I think that's healthy and normal and the way we should live life. And this another issue that I take with Christianity. Like, you have to love everybody. That's impossible. If I
Yeah.
love everybody, it devalues the people in my life I really love. It devalues love itself. I mean, I suppose everybody has access to dirt,
Yeah.
right? Like, you don't have to buy it.
Right.
And yet, so what's the value of dirt? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, but not everybody has access to gold or diamonds or precious metal. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It has greater worth, greater value. And so for me, love is about valuing someone. So if I value everybody the same, then it's dirt. It's
So
very
let's
dirty.
let's let's
It's
hang
very
our hat
dirty.
there. Let's hang our hat there. Since you got on a hat, let's hang our hat there for a
Yeah.
second,
Yeah.
because you and I both came out of the grace camp of Christian preachers,
Yep.
right? And so part of the whole grace thing was that for God so loved the world. Stop, right? For God so loved the world. This is universal. This is unanimous. This is unequivocal, right? God so loved the world. So if God so loved the world, who are we to deny love to anyone? And what I think that did, Aaron, and you may agree with me or you may disagree with me on this, but I think that created an unhealthy construct of love, because, like you're just saying, you can't love everyone, or you can't love everyone the same. It's just not possible. There are just going to be some people. Like, I'll use this as an example. Let me pick on you, because you know, I went to um, now this is not my biological uncle, but I called him my uncle. He was the father of my oldest friend. We've been friends since we were 2 years old, and I love Leon as the day is long. But I've said this, that I love you in that same category. You know, as I love Leon, I love you. And there are some people that I've known longer than I've known you, but I love you more. And that's not to diminish my love for anyone else. It's just to simply say that I have a deeper relationship with you, right?
Right.
So the thing is that we do. Your point is very well made. That when we say everything is equal, uh,
Right.
that
Right.
we diminish the value of other
Absolutely.
things. And this is where a lot of my socialist friends are going to get mad with me, right? Because I believe that all labor has value. I believe that all work has value. I believe that all people have value. However, there is more value to society for a physician than it is for someone who puts lug nuts on a Volkswagen. Now, and you know, and I'm not saying that the person who puts lug nuts on the Volkswagen doesn't have value. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that even in a socialist society, there are some roles that have primacy over others, and that's just not all things have the same value.
They they
Oh,
don't. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, I
no,
didn't
no,
mean to.
I was just saying. So when we talk about ists and isms, right? That there are some practitioners of certain things that they have more value, and so when we look at we look at the ism, um, and again it's still separating the ist from the ism, but that ist, that practitioner, that person, that individual, that they contribute something that the rest of society cannot,
Mhm.
right? So anyway,
No, absolutely. I mean, this idea of it sounds good. It sounds good to the emotions. And here's what I think the problem is. I'll run this by you, see what you think. And I'm just kind of thinking out loud. Haven't
yeah,
really
yeah,
premeditated this, but um, I think that I wonder how evolution comes into play because I was thinking about this when you were talking about going into the grocery store and we love labels, right?
yep,
Like we only have so much time to think in nuance,
yes,
and so it is convenient from an evolutionary perspective to our survival if we can generalize things.
yeah.
But that's just a map. It's not the territory because nothing
Wait,
is
say
general.
that again. Say that again because people need to hear that.
Yeah, we generalize things so that we can navigate our world. And
Right,
so, therefore, our generalization is just a map. It is not the territory.
yeah, territory.
There are nuances to everything and everybody. You could take, I mean, I know as a therapist, like I get into nuances with people in their lives, right?
Yep.
So, if I had a client, which I don't, but if I had a client that was a neo Nazi,
Huh.
right? Complete, bold faced white supremacist, there's probably nuanced reasons as to how they arrived there
Right.
that has to do with who knows what upbringing, trauma, who knows. And so we unpack those nuances, right, in that therapeutic relationship.
Yep.
You can't do that with everybody. You can't do that with everything, because otherwise you can't navigate. That's the point I'm making. You can't
Right.
navigate life. Here's the problem: when we try to make these maps the actual territory. And Alfred Korzybski, who wrote a book called Science and Sanity in the 1930s, he said that is the definition of insanity, to insist that your map is the territory. That's when you've gone off the rails.
Wow.
So you're talking about equality, and it sounds really good if we say we want a society where there's equality for all. But that is just a map because of what you just said. And I'll put it to you this way. I deeply value the custodians that work and the repairmen, handyman, women, whatever, whoever they are that come
Yeah.
in and fix things and change the lights and vacuum the rug and do all that stuff. I deeply value that. And would dare say I'm one of the few people on my job that makes a point of making a personal contact and relationship with those people and seeing them as people, right?
Yeah.
But that's just one of my values that I do. So I make a point of engaging them with conversation. Tell me about your wife and kids. Tell me about what's going on lately with you. That kind of stuff. But I'm not going to let them perform heart surgery on my kid.
Right.
And the fact and the reality is, you don't have to spend 12 years in school, another 4 years in a fellowship. I mean, these people that become doctors, you're talking about doctors, these people that become doctors, like, from what I understand, like their fellowships and internships and stuff, that's their entire life. Like, they give up everything.
Yep.
Time with family, time with recreation, time on the golf course, all this stuff to master the skill because it's so distinctly skillful.
Right.
So therefore it has more value.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So anyway, but back to the narcissism thing and the surgery thing. I wanted to point this out because I just came across this in the last couple of weeks. So there is this thing out there that's popular right now in some psychological circles called the dark triad. And it's narcissism, psychopathy, and sadism.
Okay.
Narcissism, psychopathy, and sadism. And what they've discovered is that most surgeons are really high. They score really, really high on the dark triad, especially on the sadistic side. Because to cut into someone's body and do what they do, you have to have an element of sadism. You have to be a sadist on some level. And I know this kind of sounds funny, but this is a really important distinction because we're talking about isms and ists. You have to be a bit of a sadist to cut into somebody's body and remove organs or mess with their heart or mess with their brain. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And yet that's used for good. So if we just generalize like we would with equality for all, which is a generalization in a map, or we just generalize all sadism is bad, all sadists are horrible people and we need to get rid of them, we wouldn't have any surgeons.
Man, that's huge. I never really thought about that. But that makes perfect sense. I put that on the screen. Narcissism, psychopathy, and sadism. That and all of these are what you would call like negative characteristics or negative traits, right? But in order for someone to perform surgery on another living being, that these three things have to be in place. There was a movie with Alec Baldwin, and I can't remember the name of the movie, but basically it had to do with this doctor that was in cahoots with this other guy's wife to try to frame a murder. I can't think of the name of the movie, but this Alec Baldwin's character gave this soliloquy on the on the witness stand about how doctors are essentially God, right?
Yeah, I want a narcissistic surgeon. I'm just saying, but go ahead.
No, listen, this is a true story. When I had knee surgery for the second time, I asked my doctor. I said, "Hey, did you get laid last night?" Because I don't, if you're sexually frustrated and you're fucking around on my knee, I don't really want that. And he
Yeah.
said, yeah, Derek, I got some last night. And we just moved, and we
I bet
moved
he
on.
appreciated it. But I mean, seriously, don't you want somebody that's like just knows they're a badass before they start cutting
Yeah,
on your body?
yeah,
Absolutely. Don't you want somebody that's a little egotistical?
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's like, think about this, right? If you're having someone doing open heart surgery,
Right.
they're they're splitting you open and going into your heart, the center of your physical being, right? You want this guy to be a little narcissistic, a little psychopathic, and probably a little sadistic too. I mean, you want this guy to hit the Holy Trinity.
You do. And let's be honest, if you don't have sadism, like you're not going to want to do that. Like one of the things a person told me recently too is interesting. You take anatomy and physiology, and all the systems are color coded, like all your uh, various different veins and arteries, color coded, and nerves and digestive system is highlighted.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's not real life. The map is not the territory.
Right.
When you get in there, all the veins and arteries look the same, right? Or all the so I mean, who wants to do that? Somebody that's a little bit sadistic, maybe somebody that operated on animals when they were a kid or something. You know what I'm saying? But they turned it into a good direction. Anyway, we're kind of getting off
Yeah.
topic a little bit, but
Rein it back in.
I think the point I'm trying to make is the map is not the territory, but we still have to have the map.
Yeah.
So it's okay, and with love, because people can virtue signal with this, which is also, by the way, a characteristic of narcissism. But they
Yeah.
can virtue signal, you just got to love everybody and sit down and nuance with everybody. And you're saying, I don't have any place in my life for fascists,
Right.
or whatever. Like that's perfectly fine, because you have to map people out and you have to be selective, because we're not eternal, we're not infinite. Okay, so God so loved the world, okay, well, he's infinite love and whatever, but we're not.
Right.
And so this is where Christians, they get so screwed up. Like I remember reading about like Mennonites and groups like that, and the Amish, and people that subscribe to complete passivity as the teaching of Jesus. Love your enemy, turn the other cheek, stuff like that. And they will say, without blushing, without even thinking there's anything wrong with it, if someone breaks into my house and they're trying to kill my, wife and rape my kids, I'm not going to use a firearm on them, because that would be to harm another human being. Well, you're harming a human being by your inaction. What about where James says, where the good you ought to do and you don't do it, that is a sin to you. So you have to make a decision in that point, right?
Yeah.
So from the perspective of equality for all, that guy that broke into your house, he has the same standing as a human being as your wife and kids, but your value,
Right.
because he's going to be hurt either by your action or inaction, right?
Action. Yep.
This is where it makes absolutely sense. And so obviously you have to make a choice, and it's not equality for all at that moment.
No.
And if I allow a perpetrator without resistance to harm those that I am in relationship with and I do life with, then I have shown more value for the perpetrator who has done nothing for me, and I've done no life with. Then I show
you devalued the people who are closest to you.
Absolutely. So we are required every day of our lives to make value judgments. You cannot live your life without making value judgments. What's more important in this situation to me? And that's okay. That's part of being human.
Yeah.
And this other thing is a fantasy. It is insanity. It is making the map the territory.
Yep, absolutely. And that brings up another interesting point, because I'm like, we talked about everybody, the whole concept of humanity being equal across the board, and we talked about the concept of how you have to love, you have to prefer some over others, because that's just that's human nature. But what happens when we prefer an ideology or methodology or an
Mm.
ism over people? See, and that's one of the things where, like, I look at, like, conservatism. Conservatism prefers certain behavioral aspects or certain characteristics over the people, right? And that, to me, is a problem, because I think that at the end of the day, if we're doing this, if we're doing life properly, let me just say it that way. If we're doing life properly, then we're always going to prefer the ists over the isms,
Yeah.
right? But what happens is that, and I was reading an article today about how people get caught up in groupthink, and we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
So even two people can engage in a groupthink, right? And they wind up preferring what they believe collectively over an individual. And so I was watching a video too with George Carlin before he passed, and George Carlin was saying that as long as we are looking at people individually, we're good, right? The problem comes in when two or three of us get together and we say, okay, our belief, our collective belief, our ism, is greater than whatever ist there is that it is in opposition
Mm.
to us.
That's good stuff.
And that's the challenge. So what I would say to everybody that's watching is that you have to really be careful to ensure that your love for the ism, or your embracing of the ism, never gets bigger than your love for,
Right.
or your respect for the ist. And let me say this, I am guilty of this, right? Because as an atheist that embraces atheism, that when I look at theists, a lot of times I will ascribe the same value to the theists as I do theism, not realizing that these theists, that they may be good people, they may be honest people, they may have integrity, that they may have value to me directly,
Yeah.
but I've lumped them into this ism, and so that's how I treat them, and so I have to catch myself sometimes, Aaron, and say, okay, wait a second, let me back off for a minute, because what I'm doing now is I'm conflating theism with the theists. And what I'm doing is I know that I abhor the theism. I have logical, reasonable
Hmm.
objections to theism, but instead of just saying I have these logical, reasonable objections to theism, what I'm saying now is that I have these same objections to theists, right? And that's where we go off the rails, because it's not the person, because okay, let me use a mutual friend of ours, Keith Giles. I'm going to pick on Keith Giles for a minute, because Keith Giles is a theist. He is a theist. but he is one of the most wonderful human beings that I know, right? But he, if I lump him in with theism, right, then I'm gonna say or do things to Keith that are kind of shitty because this is how I look at theism, right? So since I'm going to beat up on theism, now I wind up beating up on somebody who I love and who I respect, right? They're a theist, but I haven't separated the two.
Great. I mean, that's a great point. I, like we say in here all the time, growing in real time. Like
Yeah.
you just gave a brilliant soliloquy on that topic, and I don't think you really did that. Like, in other words, you're saying I'm going to use myself as an example.
Yeah.
While the example is powerful and wonderful, I just got to check you, man. I don't think you did that.
Okay. That's very generous, Aaron, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate you looking out for a brother like that. but here's the thing. Maybe I didn't, but in my mind, in
Ah,
my
got
perception,
it.
I did.
Got it. Got
Okay.
it. Yeah.
So
Got
so
it.
even though like you're kind of giving me an out, you're letting me off the hook. You're giving me a hall pass, right? By
Well, but
saying,
no,
well,
it's a
no,
good distinction because your behaviors with me, didn't match that at all. Because we've had lots of discussions about this,
yeah,
and so that's where I'm coming from. But I hear what you're saying, like in your mind and heart, whatever. So yeah, I won't
yeah.
speak for you.
So no. Here's the thing. What you're saying is totally legitimate because maybe I really didn't, and maybe you being on the outside looking in, that you see, okay, you see something in my blind spot, right? And so you may be absolutely right. What I'm saying is that was my perception,
Yeah,
right? That's how I treated the subject matter, right?
yeah,
So what I want to do going forward is I want to look at how do like when we talked about preaching, we would talk about preaching in the past. We talk about how we're treating the text, right?
hmm
Are,
hmm
are we allowing the text to speak, or are we inferring our own biases into the text? Okay, so by the same token, am I really am I really doing this in an unbiased way, or am I introducing some bias into this?
yeah,
You follow what I'm saying?
yeah. No, like I said, it's a brilliant. It's brilliant because what I'm seeing, and again, growing in real time, what I'm seeing is that we bring two things together that are not related to each other.
Yep.
Not even apples and oranges, apples and baseballs.
Right.
Um, Here's what I mean by that. Like
Wow.
you, like just take our relationship, for example. You bring value to my life that has absolutely nothing to do with your belief system about the cosmos or theism or atheism or any of that stuff. Um, you listen to me, you offer me advice, if you know I'm having a rough go, you check on me to see how I'm doing, right? That has nothing to do with
Yep.
what you believe about God. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So if I start to treat you as an ist because of my antagonism
Hmm.
towards atheism or whatever the ism is, the two have nothing to do with each other. You see what I'm saying? Like the way you laid that out, the way you put that out there, I'm like, wow, these things have nothing to do with each other.
Right.
Like, and this is what bugs me. And I know we're getting ready to go into another crazy season, and I'm just dreading it. I'm dreading it because I know what's going to happen. We're all going to get full of election season. everybody's going to get full of fervor for their candidate. Everybody's going to think that the sky is falling if their candidate doesn't get in or their candidate loses or whatever the case may be. And we're going to go at each other because of our isms, right?
Mm-hmm.
When
Yep.
those people don't give a fucking shit about any of us.
Yes.
They are not going to show up for our wedding. They are not going to show up for our funeral. They are not going. They don't even know we exist, and yet we're going to sit down. There are people in my life that I used to enjoy Thanksgiving with, that I used to enjoy Christmas Eve with, that I used to enjoy Easter with, that I can no longer do that because we're divided by our isms.
Yeah.
Think about how crazy that is. Because my ism dictates how I'm going to pull that lever, metaphorically or whatever, when I go in that booth, right?
Yep. Yep.
And I mean, wow, think about that. Like we get so that they, meaning the power brokers, have so learned how to tap into the power system
Yep.
of our, I'm going to say it, and I know people are going to want to correct me, democracy,
Yeah.
constitutional republic, whatever you want to call it, our
Yes.
voting, our votes.
Tomato, tomato. Yeah.
Yeah, our votes.
Yep.
That they get us fighting one another when I was there at the birth of your child. I was there holding your hand when you were in pain. You were there holding my hand when I was in pain. And now we don't get together anymore because we disagree. We're on different sides of the political aisle.
Yep.
It's insane.
I mean, and here's the thing. Look, I'm going to use my little brother, Brian, as an example. And I don't know if he's watching or not, but if he is, great. If he's not, great. If he's not, somebody get back to him and tell him that I mentioned him. But Brian is a conservative, and he is a Trumper, and he is a Republican, and he is a conservative, and he is a conservative Christian, right? Now, this could cause a whole lot of problems between us. But what he and we sat down and we had a discussion. And we said that we will not sacrifice the relationship that we have and the love that we have for each other. Because you got to understand that Brian and I, when we were kids, they threw us in the bathtub together. We slept in the same bed together, right? This is my little brother, right? And we have decided that we are not going to sacrifice the love that we have and the respect that we have for each other on the altar of our political or religious beliefs. We have made this as a conscious decision. Now, what am I getting at here is that a lot of us really need to go back and look at our relationships.
Yeah.
And we have to say, okay, is what we believe, is our ism greater than our relationship with the other is, right? And so Aaron, you have mentioned this, and I want to unpack this a little bit, is that we get into this us versus them mentality, right? And in the big scheme of things, it's not us versus them. It's us in the same barrel trying to figure out what ism is going to be the path out. We are all in the same boat. The question is, okay, we're all in the same boat. The boat is taking on water. Now we have to figure out what is the best path to get the water out of the boat so that we don't sink and die together. That is the bigger question. And here's the thing, that and this is an issue that I have with Christianity, right? Is that Christianity never said we're all in this together. It's always us versus them. It's always socialist versus capitalists. It's always right versus left. It's always Christian versus non-Christian, right? And so as a result, we come to this conclusion that somehow the solution to our problem is something that is contrary to someone else's benefit. In other words, that the solution is what is going to help us all is going to help me more,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that in order to really achieve societal humanistic success is that we got to get past that and stop looking at this in terms of a zero sum solution where it only works if it benefits me and those who are in my ism, and that this has to transcend the ism. And I think that if we transcend the isms, then we break the walls between the ists.
Yeah. I mean, you're on fire tonight. I think this is such an important conversation to have, really, because we dehumanize people. We are talking about dehumanization.
Yep.
We take an ideology, we give it a label, we don't even understand all the nuances of it. And then we take a person and we label them with that ideology, and therefore we make them less than human. Now, here's where I think it becomes dangerous. And this is maybe where fascism comes in, right? And this is what scares me about the time in which we live in America.
Because I hate fascism, by the way.
Well, but there's a reason to hate fascism.
Yeah.
Because if we dehumanize people enough, that's the antecedent, that's the predecessor, that's the father of murder and violence.
Yeah.
Because you're not human anymore.
Right.
So therefore, I can justify in my own mind. See, the justifications start long before the actual actions.
Yep.
And so the flip side of this, I guess, is, how do I want to say this? My drink's almost gone.
Yeah, mine's almost gone too. I'm coming to the end.
The flip side of this is if we don't call out shit and we don't call out people who are operating in a dehumanizing fashion, if we don't call it out on ourselves, you just called it out on yourself.
Yep.
If we don't call it out, the potential for great harm down the road, I think, is really serious and concerning. And it's one of the reasons I completely distance myself from a lot of the spiritual community and Christian community, because they got this crazy idea in 2020 that other human beings living on this planet that they didn't agree with were not really human beings. They were lizard people or lizard aliens, and because they didn't agree with their ism.
Right.
And that is dangerous. And people who did that, I cut them out of my life completely, because the next thing I know, I'm going to become dehumanized.
Right.
Because we dehumanize so easily. And we do it with a spiritual mask, spiritual language, spiritual word salad, religious cloak. And I think that's one of the reasons you and I have been so, and you more so than me, because I think you tap into this reality more than I do, for lots of reasons, that this is really, really, really dangerous stuff, because we're masking murderous intentions with religious ideology. We're masking sadistic aspects of ourselves and cloaking it in spirituality. And
Yep.
I think part of your passion, maybe just and you know, just as an observation, is coming from this really deep intuitive place that says if we don't pull back this curtain and get people to see it for what it is, some really bad shit could be on the horizon for us. And I think that's the flip side of it. So like we want to be able to separate the ism from the ist until, but we also have to be able to recognize, Derrick, we have to be able to recognize, tell me what you think of this. You may agree or disagree. We have to recognize when the ism has possessed the person, the ism has taken over the human.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they have become an embodiment of that ism. And so therefore they are an ist.
Right.
Ists, and I'm not saying this in a dehumanizing way. I'm saying that the ist can use the ism to dehumanize the other, which then gives justification to violence. What was it? If you can get people to believe absurdities, you can get them to
You can
commit
atrocities. Voltaire.
Yeah, and so I think there is a point where we have to distinguish, yes, between the ism and the ist in a humanistic, loving sort of way, but also realize this human being is now possessed by an ism.
Yep.
And they're dangerous to the survival of our species.
So let me kick this out because I spend way too much time watching documentaries about Nazi Germany because they really kind of figured shit out, right? It was like the whole Nazi program was first break down identify the communists, because communism is a bad thing. So identify the communists and let's deal with them. So what they did is they took away their businesses, took away their income, took away their savings, and eventually took away their lives, right? And you say, okay, well, communism is evil, right? So great, they did a good thing. But then they said, okay, the source of communism is Judaism. And so now we need to go back and we need to take away the Jews' right to own business and their savings and their property, right? And you take away everything from them. And then it was the homosexuals, right? The homosexuals and bisexuals, and the same thing. And they worked that program down. And then, contrary to popular belief, what a lot of people don't know is that Germany was a haven for African people, right? That it was a place of prosperity. So once they got to the communists, the Jews, the homosexuals, then they got to the black folks, right? And eventually the whole thing was to provide this ism that was German nationalism, that was Aryan supremacy, and all of these things. And eventually the goal was through groupthink to produce this homogenous society, right? And that's the thing that people have to look at, is that there I forget who it is that wrote the poem. First they came for the communists, and then they go through all these things, and then they came for me, right? And this was a poem that was written during Nazi occupation of France. And the reality is that these isms, right? These isms. Let me say this: isms want to reduce people to ists, and once isms can reduce people to ists, now we can identify people by some characteristic, whether it be by their religion, whether it be by their ethnicity, whether it be by their sexuality, that we're able to identify these people and we're able to compartmentalize them. And then once we're able to compartmentalize them, we can eliminate them,
Yeah.
right? And this is the challenge
Yeah.
of ists versus isms, is that when isms, and we've talked about this before. We did a whole show. For those of you who are watching, go back and watch the show that Aaron and I did about groupthink,
Yeah.
right? Basically the ism is the groupthink,
Mm.
and the ists are the
Mm.
people who are opposed to the groupthink, right? So the ism has a natural tendency to try to steamroll or eliminate the ists that are in opposition. And this is the thing. This is the thing that I hope that I could get everyone to see, is that we, as we approach this election season, that there is this ism that is gaining momentum in this country. Fascism. Sinclair Lewis said that when fascism comes to America, it will come draped in a flag and carrying a Bible. And this is where we are. It's that this fascism fascism is not coming to America like how Hitler um, uh, spread it in Germany. When it comes to America, it's going to be this ideology, this ism, and this ism is going to steamroll every ist that is in its way. And that's where we are. And if we don't wake up and see this, man, I'm going to tell you something. We as a country are fucked up.
Yeah.
And we're in deep, 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 deep shit.
Yeah. I I don't know why this may drive you totally nuts, Derrick.
I love it.
I agree with everything you said, but I'm reflecting I'm reflecting on Jesus as the teachings of Jesus are presented in the Gospels.
Yep.
Forget about its origins, but I'm
No,
just
it's
reflecting
cool.
on the Gospels. Maybe we've taken some things out of context, because what I'm seeing here is, and this keeps coming up to me, is macrocosm versus microcosm, right?
Boom.
So ism is the macrocosm,
Yep.
fascism, totalitarianism, communism, whatever.
Yep.
The ist is the microcosm. It's the individual person. Narcissist, atheist, communist, whatever. And maybe we misunderstood what the gospel writers were saying. Maybe when Jesus was talking about loving your enemies, right?
Yep.
Maybe he was talking about, forget the macrocosm, but realize there are people within that macrocosm, the microcosm, right? But also love your neighbor. And I'm going back to what we talked about earlier, like those that are closest to you. So like, I'm failing to communicate what I want to say. In other words, realize that people who are taken over by the macrocosm are still people.
Yep. Yeah.
And show your love to those that you value most, those that are nearest to you. Neighbor it doesn't have to mean like we read it in a 20th century context, back then, or 21st century context. It means the guy across the street. Maybe it just means those nearest to you.
Those closest to you. That's what he was. If you could take away anything from Jesus's teaching, when he talks about love your neighbor, It's the person who is closest to you. The person who is across the sea from you is not your neighbor.
Right.
You know, the person who represents something ideologically opposed to you is not your neighbor.
Yeah.
So the teaching was never universal love. And that's one
Right.
of the
That's
things
what I'm
that,
trying to say.
yeah. So if I could say, if I could piggyback on what you're saying and say
Yeah.
to our Christian audience, is that love your neighbor doesn't mean love everyone.
Right.
It means love those who are closest to you, those who represent the ism, or let me no, that they represent the common is to you.
Mm.
You know, fuck the ism for a minute. Let's say that you know the people that represent, because that's the thing, right? If I'm a socialist or a capitalist or a narcissist, right? Whatever it is. In other words, what Jesus, the teaching of Jesus is saying, find your fucking tribe
Hmm.
and love them, right? And work with them and find out how to make what you know about them work in a global context. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, what's the root? Let's just think for a minute. What's the root word of communism? Everybody vilifies it.
right.
What's the root word? Community.
Community. Say it
So
again.
community.
Yeah,
But at
community.
the same time, right? So like living in community, caring about your community. Like, duh.
Yeah.
And
Or
that
let's expand that and say socialism, right?
yeah,
What is the greater good of society,
yeah.
right? Okay, and let's extrapolate that even further. So let's go to capitalism. So capitalism says whatever benefits capital.
That's what I was just going to go to, Derrick. Took the words right out of my mouth. But somehow socialism is a pejorative in this country. Dude,
But you know what? I tell people all the time, when you call me a socialist, that's not an insult. You've complimented me.
think
Because
about it. Socialism, I care about the society that I live in. Capitalism, I care about the money.
right, I care about property, right?
Right.
And that's a big thing. Somebody had posted something about Donald Trump, and he was talking about property, 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 right? Fuck people, just property. And so when you think about this from a pure capitalistic standpoint, capitalism doesn't care about society. It cares about property, and it cares about who owns the property, right? So this goes back to something that you and I were saying in the green room, right? That we're all fucking slaves,
Yeah.
right? Because I've said this, I'm on the record of saying this, that in a capitalist society, you are either one who has capital or you are capital.
Yeah.
You're not you're either one or the other. And just because you have $1 million in assets does not mean that you are a capitalist. You are an incremental investor. You are not a gross investor. Now, if you're someone like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Oprah Winfrey, where your capital, you are a gross contributor to something, then you could say you are indeed a capitalist. But if you cannot say that, then you are indeed capital. And you need to understand that. Listen, more people, goddamn, more people have more in common with the average homeless guy than they have with the average billionaire. More people are physically closer, economically closer, philosophically closer to the average homeless person than they are to the average billionaire. You know, somebody has said that the average American thinks of themselves as a temporarily embarrassed millionaire.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you that unless you are a multi-millionaire, I mean, a lot of us may be millionaires on paper. I've been a millionaire on paper
Mm-hmm.
multiple times in my life. But unless you are a multi-millionaire or a billionaire, you're not a gross contributor to this, and that means that you are capital.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. Because, yeah, I mean, 100%. You're labor. You're a labor force.
Yep. I mean, you are, eh, you know, people. There's a conspiracy theory out here about uh, what they call homogenous birth certificates. You know, because if you look at like birth certificates when you and I were born, Aaron, you're 51, I'm 61. Um, when we were born, you had different birth certificates for different states, right? Now, if you go and get your birth certificate, it's a homogenous form. All of our birth certificates look the same. And so what there's a conspiracy theory out there that says that basically your birth certificate is a stock form that is owned by the United States government.
Right.
Now, I'm not getting into conspiracy theories or anything here, but it's basically saying that the United States government has a claim on your physical being,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Of course they do. So here's my thought on that. I think most conspiracy theorists get the problem right, but they get the nuances
Answer
wrong.
wrong. Ah,
I think they
dude.
get the feeling right, but they, in trying to solve it, they come up with crazy ideas. Of course they own you. Of course they do. What state do you live in? If you want to share,
Oklahoma.
why
Oklahoma.
do you even have to say that? That land's not yours. That land belongs to the state of Oklahoma. And if you're like us in Colorado, you pay them to live there every fucking year. The only people group in America that have the right to take you by force and incarcerate you or shut down your business or put you someplace you don't want to be is the government.
Yeah.
Of course they own you. Of course they do. Of course you're just a number to them. Like that should be self-evident. But that doesn't mean we have to go off into crazy conspiracy theories that just divide us more and breed things inside of people that I think is unhealthy. That's my take on that.
No, I mean, here, and again, here's the thing, right? That we can agree that there are certain isms that are fucked up.
Yep.
I think that you know that everyone watching this program tonight, that we can agree that there are isms that are fucked up. But the point that I'm getting at, and the point of this show tonight, is that not all the ists are fucked up, right? There are people that are misled. There are people that misunderstand. There are people that they don't have the full picture, right? And that's okay. That's okay. What I'm getting at is that we need to stop hating on each other
Yeah.
and demonizing each other because
Yeah.
we happen to fall into this camp. Okay, so here's the thing, right? This is what I'll say, and I'll shut up after this. That if we can get to the point where we say, okay, I believe this, I believe this, but this does not necessarily have to govern everyone else.
Right.
If I can believe this and I think that this is okay, but this works for me, but let's just use you and I as an example. If I say, Aaron, this works for me, but I don't think that this necessarily has to govern you, then I understand clearly the delineation between the ist and the ism. And I'm cool because I can say, okay, yeah, I believe this, but I don't necessarily think that this should govern you. I think that you have the right to, you know, to self governance, to self identification based on what you believe,
Yeah.
and that I'm cool with what you believe, and that I mean literally that's how I believe because you know we have deep conversations and you know and you'll say okay I believe this that and the other Derrick and I'll say well I believe in this and we may not agree but we agree that okay that what you believe has value
Yeah.
that your ism has value and that I respect your ist and that's where we need to get to. I think that that's the key to unlocking all of this is that we need to say okay I respect your ism and I respect your ist, right? As long as your ism and your ist don't try to steamroll mine.
Yeah. Yeah. That's excellently said. I think it's a good strategy for life because
Yep.
we can't control the context in which we are right now. We can't. And I think we believe that we can. I think we believe if we, if we get on social, and I'm talking about political shit because I know what's coming. I know I thought this. I have a responsibility to put the truth out there for people and to try to persuade what 10 voters,
Yeah.
100 voters, 1,000 voters. Is it going to make any difference? None. None at all.
Yeah.
But I think we can control the context. If we can get the right person in office, if we can get the right people with enough money to give enough charity, or who knows, whatever we think we can control. But the reality is we don't control the game.
Yep.
We're just avatars in the game, right?
Yep.
So we have to figure out how to play our lives as best we can on the level that we are to create for ourselves and the people we care about, the people we love, the best experiences that we possibly can. While I would add, Derrick, valuing ourself and our experience above everyone else, because that's the only thing we can actually control.
Right.
If my kids are unhappy, depressed, anxious, if it's because of me, that's an issue I can control.
Yep.
If it's not because of me, I can wish them all the happiness in the world. I can wish them all the peace in the world. I can wish them all the best in the world. I can't control that.
Right.
The only thing I can control is the only joystick I have in this game is operate my avatar.
Bingo.
The only joystick I have.
Yeah.
And so I think if I'm taking anything away from this conversation, it is to make a value judgment, back to what I was saying earlier at the beginning,
Yep.
about the things that are going to bring the most value to me in my life. And fighting for my ideologies is probably the thing that has taken away the most value from my life, to be honest.
Bingo. Bingo. In other words, let's stop thinking about in terms of our ideologies and think of in terms of our individuality. Because again, going back to what George Carlin said, if we're talking about individuals and individuality, most people are okay. What happens is it gets off the rails when we get into groups and we start getting into groupthink and we start collectivizing into these isms, right? That we go off the rails. Let's stop thinking about the isms and start thinking about me as an ist and how do I relate to other ists.
Yeah.
And if we do that, I think that will.
I think we can enrich our lives, because I think we cut people off because of we in other words, people that can bring value to our life in a very practical, territorial sort of way, going back to mapping the territory, not territorial in a negative sense, but people that can really, that we enjoy, that may open doors for us, that may connect us with people that open doors for us. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's actual real life stuff. And we sacrifice all of that to defend our ism. And I get it. I get it. It's okay. It's okay to have.
Here's the thing: we don't defend our isms; we defend our ists.
Yeah, true.
That's the key. So if we're going to advance humanity, right? Let's focus on our ists. There's nothing wrong with focusing on your ists, your individualism, your what you believe personally. It's when you export your individuality into some group thing that's when it goes off the rails.
I agree completely. I think you should have strong opinions.
Yep,
I love the
absolutely.
opinion. Everyone should have strong opinions
Absolutely.
and should fight for their opinions and try to persuade people for what they think is the best way to go.
Yep.
It's gotten so over the line, right? It's gotten so crazy, and it's done a lot of harm. So I long for the days, and I remember these days, and I keep saying this. I've said this a million times on this podcast.
Yep.
I long for the days when we can have passionate, formidable disagreements, pound the table over our ideas, and then hug and go have beers after.
You know what? I'm going to tell you something, right? People need to really be privy to the discussions that you and I have in private.
Yeah.
Because we don't agree on everything. I mean,
Right.
I would say that we're probably 50-50 in what we agree on and what we disagree on. But we come to a conclusion. We say, okay, this is how we resolve this and go forward and love each other and continue our relationship. And I think that if more people put some conscious focus on that,
Yeah.
and say then I think that would be the fuel that humanity needs to go forward.
Yeah, it's healthy. It's fun. Like, we love our discussions. Like, we don't avoid them. We don't avoid hard topics
Nope, not at all.
at all. And yeah, I long for that on a more, and that's what I think we do really well here. And one of the reasons I agreed to do Phreology Friday in the beginning was because of the dynamic that we have. I felt like back, 3-4 years ago, whenever we started this, it's been at least 4 years.
It'll be 4 years in July.
Yeah. So I felt like we needed to model for people how to have conversation.
And we do that.
About difficult issues.
Yep.
And we've talked about it, but we're from two different worlds. I'm from white America, not even suburban. Well, I'm suburban now, but so I guess, yeah, white America, suburban, and rural. And you're from Detroit.
I'm from Detroit. I'm from the
hood. You're black, I'm white. You served in the military. I've lived in the same place my entire life.
Yep.
Like, we couldn't be more different or from more different backgrounds. So if we can sit down and have these discussions, I mean, we have some things in common. We were both pastors and whatever, but everybody has something in common.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, if we could model, Civility. I keep coming back to that word this year, Derrick. I've used it with you before,
Dude,
but
that
civility.
that if there is a word for 2024, that's it. Civility.
Yeah.
You know, how do we come together in a way that is not offensive, that is not antagonistic? You know, how do we come together? And you know what I love about Phreology Friday, Aaron, is that I think that we model that. You said that, and I stand on that.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, we really we model the difficult discussions, the difficult topics, and what is a common resolution to these things.
Right.
So so you want to go through comments? I mean, it's not a whole lot of comments.
Yeah. I noticed that. I've been watching them. Um, our friend is on again tonight that
Yeah,
I don't know.
blessed be he.
Maybe off their meds.
So
That's
so
all.
we've discovered that blessed be he is a woman because well maybe not, but blessed be he says that talked about her husband.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah, lots of good, loving Christian comments there.
yeah, but you know, blessed be he likes Trump. You know, she says, I'm
Shocker.
going to put it on the comments. Trump is not Schindler. Trump wants the best for everyone without the isms and the is.
Try
Okay,
telling Nikki Haley that or E. Jean Carroll.
you
Anyway,
know,
go ahead, Derek.
no, listen, Trump does not want the best for everyone. Trump wants the best for him and the people
Yeah.
closest to him. Listen, anybody that thinks that Trump has the best interests of anybody in the country, you're
Try
fucking
telling Mary
delusional.
Trump's niece that. Try telling E. Jean Carroll that. Try telling Michael Cohen that. Try
Yeah,
telling Nikki Haley that. Try
yeah.
telling Meatball DeSantis, the sanctimonious.
Meatball
Um,
Ron.
yeah, and I don't mean that as a racial slur. I'm just quoting him.
Yeah.
That's a ludicrous, insane argument. I mean, just hysterical. I mean, we could spend a 3-hour show just listing people that Trump does not have their best interest in heart.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a whole show.
Oh, that's so funny. Let's see. So blessed be he, since we're giving you your props, and I assume that's why you come on because you like the attention, and we keep giving into it. His light and life is within you. You say that all the time, every time, over and over. Purify yourself, gentlemen. Turn your stone hearts into light and life, his furnace inside of you. So that's how I say 8.6. Damn. Didn't know
Yeah.
that. His
And
furnace
then she
inside
says,
of you.
even atheists
Purify
have
yourself.
dogma. Even atheists have dogma. Listen, you know what? Atheists don't have dogma. Well, let me put it this way: all atheists don't have dogma. There are some atheists that do have dogma because atheism can be just as dogmatic as any other ism.
But isn't this what we talked about tonight? Like, clearly, she didn't tune in or listen. Weren't we talking
Yeah,
about this? Like, you can't identify individuals in the context of the greater whole and then say they all think this way. Like, isn't that where we started? Like, I started
that's
out
where we started.
where, since we're on it, something about like being too nice or something. And if somebody breaks into your home, and I used that illustration, go back and watch,
Yeah,
blessed
you
be
did.
me. I used that exact illustration before you logged on. So apparently you completely misunderstood what we were talking about. So anyway, whatever. JD Vance said Trump isn't losing his cognitive faculties. Trump calls him by the native atheist. Are you guys awake or woke?
Wait, what was that?
I can do that show on woke. Blessed be he says, "Are you guys awake or woke?"
Well,
That is the dumbest.
I'll just say this from my standpoint, right? I'm woke, but I'm woke in the right way. Um, because we had talked about this in the green room, right? About how people get so woke that they they just become, I don't know. You could go off the rails with anything, right?
Exactly.
And wokeism is a way to go off the rails. What I'm saying is that when you understand that American history has been whitewashed, that's woke, right? That when you understand that that women have been subjugated in this society, that's woke. That when you understand that LGBTQ people have been subjugated, they've been oppressed, that's woke, right? But it's like you could take that and you could build this whole sandcastle on that, and I think that there is a point where you go off the rails with that. Understand, yes, there are people who have been oppressed, that there are people who have been subjugated, that there are people who have been disenfranchised. Great. That's all fine. But when you say, okay, that one of these groups has primacy over other groups, that's when wokeism goes off the rails to me.
Well, it's a dumb question. This is where semantics again, right?
Yep.
So I get up in the morning, I come upstairs, and I tell my wife, I'm awake. She's usually up before me getting the kids ready and whatever. Or I come, to my wife in the morning and say, I woke up. Like, it's a stupid argument. It's so stupid. Are you
Yeah.
guys so I can assume that means awake is if you're part of the QAnon crowd, and
Well,
woke is
here's the thing. Woke can actually mean being part of the whole QAnon community, or woke can mean part of the whole, that America has whitewashed its history, kind of thing.
I'm laughing at the comment, Derrick. I'm not laughing at what you're saying. I'm sorry, just for the viewers.
No, no,
You
no.
keep
I'm
talking. I
with you,
just saw
man.
the new comment come in. Go ahead. Go ahead, bro. I'm sorry. I had to laugh out loud when I saw that.
No, I mean, no. I'm with you. And I'm laughing with you. I'm not laughing at you.
Well, I'm not laughing at you either, and I don't mean to be rude. It's just the comment came in and it just cracked me up. But go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, the thing is that being woke simply means being aware,
Yeah.
right? So there was a painting, and and I forget what the painter's what the artist's name was, but basically his painting was called CRT, and basically it had these pictures of Malcolm X and Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass, and it had some white guy with a paint roller, white, painting white over all of it, right?
Hmm.
Okay, and his the title of the painting was CRT, right? And so when we talk about like critical race theory is not something that's being taught in school. Critical race theory is something that basically has emerged in law school,
Right.
right? And it's not even a thing at the university level or at the high school level or any other level. It's something that's very specific to law school. So the whole thing. So when you say woke, in that context, this woke is just saying, okay, we recognize that there is something that is trying to subdue some level of history.
I'm sorry, Derek. Blessed be He. You are great entertainment. I hope you will watch us till Jesus comes back because you are some great entertainment. And everything you said about critical race theory is absolutely correct, 100% correct. And yeah, I don't even know what to say.
Well, all I can say is that this has been fun.
It's been
Uh,
great.
I listen for everybody that's watching, and I hope that you will like and share this, widespread, that on Facebook, that you'll contribute stars to it, because Aaron and I, we'd like to ultimately build an income on this, because we're sharing some stuff with you guys that you're not hearing anywhere else. But
True. Very
that
true.
being, that being said, uh, I, listen, I think that that first of all, in the context of this discussion, that we need to learn how to separate the ists from the isms. That's the first thing. We need to learn how to and stop demonizing the people who hold opinions that are different than ours. That's one. The
Hmm.
second thing is, so we're talking about wokeism and all of that, right?
Hmm.
That the way I look at this is that you're either awake or you're asleep.
Hmm.
And it's really very simple. This is a very binary discussion. If you're awake, then that means you're aware of certain things, and that there are certain things that have touched you, or you're involved in, that indicate that you are part of the awake crowd.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if you're awake, great, right? Because that means you're not asleep. You haven't been lulled by American history. You haven't been lulled by the overarching narratives. That you are awake and that you're aware of what's going on. And there is some shit that's going on. There is a signal that is trying to uh, assert itself over the noise. And if you're awake, that means you have got that signal.
Yeah.
Okay. So that being said, I just, for everyone out here that's watching this, and that they're getting something, and they're awakening to something that they weren't aware of before, then that means that Aaron and I have done our fucking jobs. Okay. That's it.
I just one last thing about awakening, and I quit looking at comments. But blessed be He says, "Isn't this channel about awakening the giant within?" No, that's Tony Robbins. Go check out Tony Robbins' channel.
Yeah, and Tony Robbins is a literal giant.
Confused. I was confused. All right, Derrick, this is great, man. I really, this one really, um, it's funny because initially when you suggested, I'm like, where are we going with this? Like, what? How are we going to get an hour, much less an hour and a half out of this?
I do.
And, but dude, I mean, and I know we say this every time, but for me personally, this has been one of the most expansive um, talks that we've done.
I
Like,
love it.
really, this really made me think in different ways about things, to see things from multiple different perspectives, to reevaluate myself and how I come across when I'm dealing with isms or ists, how I think about decisions and value judgments that I make in my life. I mean, it was just everything I would expect from a Phreology Friday and more. So,
I love
man,
it, man.
it was
Growing
really
in real
for
time.
me.
That's what
For
we
me,
do.
really one of the great ones. Um, so thank you for suggesting the topic, and thank you for taking the time every Friday night to do this with me. Not only is it fun and a highlight, and I get to spend time with you, but it really does expand and grow me as a person. It's one of the, you know, things that I do to invest in myself to for my own personal growth and self-care. And you're a huge, I mean, this basically you're it. So
No, dude, listen, let me say this is that, every time that I spend time with you, whether it be on screen or off screen, dude, I grow.
yeah,
I
me too.
grow. My my mind expands, my consciousness expands, and dude, I'm grateful. Aaron, you have been one of the greatest blessings in my life, and I don't say that lightly,
But
but you listen, you are my best guy friend. just
same,
just period.
I was thinking about, you said it's been 4 years, so that means we started this in 2020. So it
Yep.
came at a really good time when the wheels were falling off and the cheese is falling off the cracker for so many people. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
mean, let's be honest, 2020, it was a hard year, man. It fucked a
it
lot of things up
was.
for a lot of people. And so I treasure this. I treasure you. I treasure your friendship. I treasure our audience. I want to know how to expand it and grow it, because honestly, Derrick, I don't think there's a show better out there, talking about stuff and doing it in an entertaining way.
No,
Um,
dude.
I
I'm gonna
really
tell you something. This is the shit, really. Honestly, and folks, if the folks that are listening, listen. Honestly, share this with your friends. Share this with your friends because
Damn it. I
listen.
looked at the comments again. I'm sorry, Derrick. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying because it, the thing is that if you want to grow in real time, like Aaron and I grow in real time, man, watch this shit and share.
Yeah, please do. And I'm sorry. I think my big glass got to me, but our friend says here, you natural.
Yeah, you naturalists need to repent.
And for some reason, my mind went to like this.
Let me just say this for the record, right? That I'm the only one that's close to a naturalist here, right? Aaron
Well,
is not a naturalist. Let's make sure that we clear
that's
the decks
absolutely
of
true.
that.
That's absolutely the truth. But when my mind went to naturalist, for some reason, I was thinking like nudist colonies and shit.
Okay, so you know what, Aaron? One day we're gonna have to do a show with no shirts on.
We are the naturalists. We are
Yeah,
coming out.
we're coming out.
We're going back to, we can call the title "Going Back to the Garden of Eden."
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Return to paradise.
Oh my god! Oh,
I'm probably being inappropriate. Everybody forgive me. I had a little more than I usually do.
no,
Um,
bro, go ahead and close this out, man.
I don't know. I'm kind of waiting
This
to
is
see
excellent.
I'm
This is
kind of waiting to see what's coming next across the base. What's going to be served up? Oh.
yeah. Oh, blessed be he says, yeah, do a show with no shirts. Oh, watch though. I I I I beg to differ. I think that if we do a show shirtless, that will be the biggest show ever.
Probably would be. All right, blessed be he. Thank you so much for entertaining us tonight. Derrick, thank you for the evening.
Thank you, my brother. I
Audience,
love
thank
you,
you
man.
for watching. Replay watchers, thank you for watching. Let us know in the comments let us know what you think, if you're watching by replay, so we can put out content that you guys enjoy. And
Absolutely.
with that, growing in real time, peace and hair grease. Thanks for coming to our TED Talk.
Love
We're
you,
out.
man.
Love you too.